No.
All
right, I'm going to just admit everybody now.
Okay. Yes. I can't. Oh, there we go. People starting to join. Welcome, everybody.
Oh my goodness. It's quite amusing seeing all these things just come flooding through.
Yes. Well, welcome everybody who's joining us. We are going to be recording this session, and we are going to be putting everybody on mute as well. The session will last about 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes for questions afterwards. So please open the chat box and send us any questions. Send me any questions directly or to everybody, and I will get to those at the end.
Good morning.
We know that some people are having a few problems getting in, including one of our panelists, Claire. So if anybody else has any problems, we'll just take a little bit of time to get everyone settled. These things are usually a little bit disjointed at the beginning, but that's no problem. And then we'll start. But yeah, like I said, what we'll try to do is ask Lara, who's the administrator of the call, to put everybody on mute. And then, apart from the speakers and myself, obviously. Myself. There we go. I'm back.
You did need.
There we go. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, if everybody's ready, we'll get started. Take that as a yes.
Can we just wait maybe just another minute or so, Rob, just to make sure that Claire's able to log in, because she's having a little bit of issues, but she should be in soon, I hope.
Not a problem at all. And she, do you know, I mean, obviously you're in communication with her, so is she joining via the Zoom link now?
I've just seen her come into the waiting room, so she's here somewhere. Right. Claire, unmute yourself.
And put your camera on.
And put your camera on so we can see you. I just saw her come in.
Hopefully, there's not been too many problems for other people as well. And I'm sure that people will be joining us as the talk goes on, as they get their reminders on their phone and they remind themselves that they'll be on here.
Oh, there she is.
Okay, I don't have her at the top, but we'll persevere. We'll carry on. Okay, Claire's in. I don't see Claire at the moment, but I trust you that she's in.
I'm here.
Welcome. Okay, great. Welcome, Claire. Good day to everybody, wherever you are in the world and wherever you're listening to this, either by recording or live with us this morning. And welcome. The topic of discussion today is, what does it take to be a modern lawyer? I am your moderator for the session, Rob Green. I'm the CEO of the GRM Group. We are an award-winning recruitment and research company based on 3 continents, and we assist senior lawyers find fulfilling careers across the world. And in addition to that, we have our consulting services, which assist companies to enter Asia and African markets. I've been lucky enough to work with many thousands of lawyers over the last 2 decades. And I, for one, find the services that are provided by the panelists from Coaching Advocates that you will hear from today very timely, very poignant, and there's going to be many points that are going to arm you correctly to tackle the future that the legal sector is going to face. So I'm joined today by our 4 expert coaches and panelists who are also all senior lawyers. And they make up the leadership team of Coaching Advocates, which you can visit on coachingadvocates.com, hopefully after this talk. And there'll be plenty of information given throughout the session. But if in doubt, coachingadvocates.com is where you head to. So first, please allow me to introduce the panelists. Lara Wentworth and Claire Bibby, who I believe are in Sydney, Australia today. Welcome. Katie Gray in New Zealand. And Frida Levitsky, who is a stone's throw, literally a stone's throw from me over there in Cape Town, South Africa. So welcome to you all.
Thank you.
I'll start today off with a quick introduction to each of them so that our guests know who each of you are. I'll start with Claire, who is late to join us, and I still can't see her, but I trust she's there.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, there we go. She's there now. Great. Claire is a Sydney-based lawyer and non-exec director with a local and international practice that includes legal services and professional life coaching for lawyers. Claire privately consults as a senior lawyer, professional coach, public speaker, and mediator. She has over 30 years of experience spanning many practice areas: corporate, commercial, property, insurance, financial services, IP, industrial relations, and general business law. Claire is a nationally accredited mediator and qualified arbitrator, and has also, part of that, spent a decade as a litigator for top-tier law firms. Lara Wentworth is an Australian qualified lawyer with some 20 years standing. As well as being a lawyer, Lara is also involved in business development, leadership training, coaching, and learning and development. Lara's career change, I understand, commenced about 4 years ago, and she is now a performance and wellness coach with a focus on members of the legal profession. Lara is also a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming. Katie, prior to retraining as a coach, Katie Gray was a banking and finance lawyer with over 16 years experience. She began her career in Brisbane, where she worked for Thine and McCartney before joining Australian giant law firm Allens Arthur Robinson. At 26, she moved to Herbert Smith's, or now Herbert Smith Freehills, London office, and has lived abroad ever since, moving into partnership with HSF, particularly in their Singapore office. She is a certified ontological coach, is a word I struggled with earlier, and a health and wellness coach. And finally, Frida Levitsky, who is an English qualified lawyer with over 16 years experience in international law and has practiced all around the globe in many of the countries that I've followed her through. Prior to establishing her own legal consultancy, Frida held very senior positions at Norton Rose Fulbright, Louis Dreyfus Company, and as a partner with Evershed Sutherland. Frida is trained as a whole person certified coach and an inner life skills Enneagram coach, and is certified by the International Coaching Federation. So welcome to our esteemed panel. I want to get straight into this topic, the topic of what it's going to take to be a modern lawyer. And I want to talk about the why. And I'd really like to direct that firstly to Frida, and talk about why are we talking about this topic? What is the legal sector facing at the moment? Why is this particularly poignant at the moment?
Thank you, Rob, and well done on getting my surname right today, which is fabulous. So the reason we wanted to talk about this today is that over the last 30 years, we've seen some real changes in the legal industry. And we're not just talking about the last 18 months. I mean, we have been dealing with obviously with the fallout with COVID, but there has been this rapid change in the world as a whole because of the fourth modern revolution. And there's a lot of emphasis that is being placed on technical skills, modernization of programs, going into AI. But what I see as doing is trying to build in technical changes, modern changes into quite an archaic system, which is the legal system. And I speak from being in it for 20 years, and not a lot has changed from the mental health side, from the mindset side, on the way that we work within the system that is allowing us to really benefit and modernize ourselves so that we can keep up with that big world around us. And I think that's the most important thing, is that if we want to be lawyers of the future and we want to be able to adapt and be flexible and change in the future, we really need to start changing our mindset and focus on things around our self-awareness that are really quite important to be able to put us in that position to adapt.
And Lara, do you have anything to add on that particular topic in terms of the why we're talking about this at the moment?
Yeah, so certainly, like Frida said, over the last 30 years, but obviously over the last 18 months, 2 years, we've experienced change at a rate that we've not experienced before. And whilst, traditionally the legal profession is a little bit, not a little bit, is very resistant and stuck as far as change is concerned, this has really thrust us into change, whether we like it or not. And so we're seeing a lot of lawyers that are struggling with that because, they may not have the necessary people skills, human skills, awareness, ability to build relationships, that are struggling with this change that's happening around the world. So it's a timely conversation that we're having, because what we, the lawyer of the past, the lawyer that used to be in the business of selling legal skills or selling legal expertise and legal knowledge, is no longer cutting it. We are now in the business of selling experience. We're selling relationships. We're no longer just, selling information. And so in order to do that, we need to step out of the way that we've always done things and really step into the modern world with like Frida said, a different mindset, with a different way of approaching change and being a lot more adaptable than what we've been used to in the past.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point, actually. I mentioned to Frida many years ago that one of the changes that I saw, and maybe Katie was there at the same time, in Asia, probably a decade ago, was this shift towards the lawyer, less emphasis being put on or less value being put on the actual technical skills, and actually a lot more emphasis being put on business development skills, which typically they hadn't previously been taught. So it was kind of a rush to get those skills, and I'm sure that's largely, obviously, what you're alluding to there. And in terms of the moving on slightly from the why, I want to talk a little bit more about the what. What makes up a modern lawyer? Delve a little bit deeper into what skills that lawyer must have. And if I can refer to Claire on this. What really, and obviously slightly later we'll get into the topic of some of the programs that you at Coaching Advocates offer, but what really is the modern lawyer, the makeup of the modern lawyer, what we're looking for?
Well, from my perspective, I'll quote my own experience, if I may. In my last executive role that I had before I became a coach, I managed a team of 50 lawyers based all around the world. And I loved doing that, but I was never equipped to do that by the education that I got from university or by the education that I had got as a younger lawyer. I worked for a firm called Phillips Fox, now known as DLA Piper. And I look back at those days 30 years ago. And, some of those experiences, I remember seeing a stapler being thrown across a room by a partner at a junior solicitor. Now, you wouldn't see that sort of conduct these days, one would hope, but that's the people that I had to learn from to develop leadership skills. And so clearly I didn't learn any leadership skills from them. So when we talk about the modern lawyer today, we're talking, I guess, from the perspective not of being the technical black and white lawyer, but looking at, as often they're called, the softer skills and the leadership skills. And one thing I often say to younger lawyers who are going up the pathway to success is learn to be the type of manager that you wish you had when you were a young lawyer. And if you can be that type of manager to the lawyers that you are managing, then you are fitting the brief. Then you are a modern lawyer, because you're acting as the market itself and the younger solicitors also expect of you.
Excellent. And Katie, is there anything you can expand on there in terms of your own experience of perhaps where you obviously yourself worked abroad and worked for some big names? Is there anything that you think that armed you or didn't arm you for your role going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of levels, we just don't know what to expect. And I think that's the exciting bit and also the scary bit, in that when we're looking at what the modern lawyer is going to be, we can't say exactly. We can't say that this piece of technology is going to be what's going to get you ahead. And I think the last 18 months has showed us more than anything that you never know what's around the corner. So it's that bit about being able to cope with change and being able to be adaptable and flexible that is really critical. And, having seen that moving around the world and having to adapt and fit in with new cultures as well, that's obviously an important aspect of of being adaptable and flexible.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that, Rob? Can I just add a little bit more to that? I completely agree with exactly what Claire and Katie said, and it reflects my experience, certainly from being in-house and in private practice over the years. And I'm not saying that those companies firms that I work for weren't trying to push things forward and putting in place various programs to help and adapt. I was fortunate, but there is that, Claire mentioned it earlier, is that we call them soft skills. I mean, there is no weight given to the fact that people need to be more self-aware. People get told that they need to be more healthy, that you need to set boundaries, but you go and tell a junior associate to set some boundaries to a senior partner who's telling her to do something. We don't have that equipment, we don't have that confidence, we don't have that communication skill to be able to actually to implement what we need to do to be able to move forwards. And I think that to me is where we have to be combining intellectual intelligence, we obviously need that as lawyers, with this emotional intelligence at all levels up the ladder. Otherwise, we're never going to break away from what we currently have.
Yeah, it's interesting. I use this sort of example a number of times when I'm talking to senior lawyers about their next move and certainly some of the skills that they have or they don't have. I think prior to recruiting for law firms, I recruited for investment banks, and they were a lot more ahead of the curve on this. I mean, it sounds like it might not sound like much, but it's something that resonates with me. I remember I used to work with Deutsche Bank a lot in London, and they used to. Whereas back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you would typically not put a person's interests or maybe other skills or courses that they've done on their CV because the thought process was that no one was really interested in what you referred to and what everybody referred to as soft skills. But then very quickly, early 2000s, Deutsche Bank, UBS, other banks were like, no, leave them on. We want to know everything about these people. We want to know if they've been a captain of a team or because then that shows communication skills and things like that. So they were, but would you say, I mean, I don't want to be mean to the industry that I serve, but do you think the law sector has largely been behind the curve on this? And can I direct that at Lara?
Yes, Rob. Most definitely we're behind on this is the short answer. When I was sort of a junior lawyer and I was learning the ropes, there was this idea that you sink or swim, in the legal world, and you're either cut out to be a lawyer or you're not cut out to be a lawyer. And so I really sort of sat back and thought about what does it take to be cut out to be a lawyer? What does it take to be cut out? Well, to be cut out to be a lawyer, I was told you can't really have emotions. So you can't really use your emotions in any decision making because emotions are no good in the legal space. You've got to know the law. You've got to be the expert in your area so that you can win more work. You've got to go out and get work, by the way, and you've got to network and bring in work, and you do that however way you sort of can or know how to do. So there's a whole heap of your shoulds and your needs and all that sort of stuff without giving me the tools or the skills of how do I actually do that. And so, the more I experience the world and I experience law and I experience mental health problems myself, I realized that really what was missing for me was those skills that I needed to stay in charge of my own emotions, my mind, my mindset, so that I can then deliver. The way that I look at this, our soft skills, and we can call them, hard skills, because really that's what they are, but our essential human skills, they are the glue that allow our technical legal skills to be put to use. So there's no good being technically brilliant at what we do if we can't build rapport with a client and build that trust with that client. If we can't go out and business develop and sell what we do to people around us and tell people what we do, if we can't manage clients' expectations and communicate effectively with clients so they know where they stand and what to expect. So all those brilliant technical legal skills are really wasted if we don't have the human skills to put them into use. And unfortunately, the legal profession has for far too long put a massive emphasis and overvalued those technical legal skills and undervalued the human skills that really make those skills come alive. And so we don't see a lot of training around human skills. We don't see a lot of emphasis on real communication skills. You know, I love seeing resumes and CVs that says excellent communicator, you know, exceptional communication skills, you know, really good communicator. And I just think, I wonder if, you know, I wonder if that person really understands what that means. Because when I learned I always had great communication skills on my resume until I actually learned communication skills, and I went, oh, that's what they're talking about, because there's a big difference. Yeah, there's a difference. So I think we're behind on that because, well, to be quite blunt, and I'm open for anyone who wants to disagree with me, is that it's not really what we build people for. You know, we don't really build people for our human skills, for our essential skills. We build people for the technical part of what we do, for being able to write a contract or review a contract or take a matter to court. That's what makes us the money. And so therefore I think we've been far too focused on those skills as lawyers rather than, you know, the other more human skills. I hope that answers the question, Rob.
Yeah, that was perfect. And I really like the sentence you said there about the human skills being the glue that brings that allows the technical skills, I suppose, to flourish. And it's absolutely perfect description of the issues that are being faced. And I think if I can use another small anecdote that from my side in terms of the people with careers and moving around. You know, we've very, very quickly gone from firms asking to staff up with partners that can communicate. Do they have good communication skills? Are they able to hold their own, at a networking event, etc.? And very quickly that's moved to they must be bringing clients. They must have such good communication skills that they are able to, and deep relationships. And I find. And this is globally, this is not just limited to Asia and Africa where we largely work. A lot of the lawyers haven't been trained in how to do that. And they haven't had any, you're just relying on them being a nice person and someone promising to bring the work with them. So again, those that are hiring are really asking for skills that a lot of the people haven't been taught. And in terms of that, Claire, and if I can come to you in terms of, I don't want to use them call them soft skills, but in terms of those and the structure of how firms have been in terms of introducing that to their lawyers, is that something that you've also seen at your time at Phillips Fox that it wasn't really a particularly big focus?
Well, Phillips Fox was a very, very long time ago, and I'm sure it's a very different firm now. And, it wasn't that it was bad back then. It was just what it was. And it was the same as every other firm that I went to. And I did change to other firms along the way. But I often, I think how we refer to doctors as not having good bedside manners. And perhaps as lawyers, we don't have whatever the appropriate bedside manner is that we should have with our clients. And I think back to my days when I was a general counsel and I was a little bit on the other side because I was the client, and the large law firms would want my money because I was fortunate to work for a large organisation, and my legal spend every year was a 7-figure Australian dollar sum, so quite a lot of money. And firms would, they'd send me bottles of wine and they'd give me tickets to rugby games and things like that. And I think, okay, you don't know who I am because I'm not going to go to a rugby game. And thanks for the wine. I'll put it at home and I won't drink it. The ones that I liked were the partners that would make time to get to know me and ring up and talk about, so, hey, Claire, how's this going? And how's that going? And give me value adds and build rapport with me. And they were the people that I gave my work to because I enjoyed working with them, because I looked for more than just a black letter lawyer. I wanted all the colours of the rainbow in the people that I engaged with, because I also wanted my job to be fun. And I'd built a really great team And one of the questions that I would always ask when I interview people, and I know it used to throw particularly young lawyers for a bit of a spin, I would say, so what book are you reading at the moment? And it's not a normal interview question. And I honestly didn't care what their answer was. It could be I'm reading Mills and Boon. It really didn't matter. But what I was doing my very best Yoda impersonation, because I wanted to know, would there be a disturbance to the force when they came to work in my team? Because if so, I didn't want somebody who might be technically a brilliant lawyer, but didn't know the subtleties of working in the environment that we in particular worked with. And again, those are not the skills that you're taught in law school or by your firms, but there's something that coaching can bring to you. And I think there's been a little bit of it. There's certainly been a little bit of an uptake in coaching and a bit of a changing of an attitude that coaching is only there for remediation. People are now seeing the opportunities that coaching can bring to them to learn these skills that you don't learn. And I mean, Lara's the master in this room for neuro-linguistic programming, but one of the things I love to do when I talk to clients, if I want to just freak them out a little bit, I say, you do know that I'm trained in reading eye movements, and I know which part of the brain you're going to, and I also know if you're telling me a fib or if you're telling me the truth. And I have been trained in that. It is a little bit of an exaggeration to say that I know exactly where it is that you're going, but those sorts of skills, they're particularly handy if especially you're negotiating a deal and somebody's bluffing you on the other side. And that's just the sort of skills you don't learn in law school. But there's education out there to go and learn about it and become a modern lawyer and get ahead of the rest of the game. And I love it when I say that to people, because all of a sudden they get quite self-conscious and they think, shit, where am I looking? Look ahead, don't move your eyes. And you can just see people have a little meltdown when I say that to them. But it's just one of the many, many things that we learn in coaching.
Well, I mean, I did feel uncomfortable when you started.
You won't look at me now.
I was thinking, where can I look? But also, I just thought, actually, I need to do that course for my children.
Yes.
It would be a perfect one as a dad to learn. That's excellent. And I like the fact that you also there touched on that you don't learn it at law school. And I was going to come to Katie and just ask. I was going to ask about that and whether that you think. We've sort of picking on what law firms didn't teach and did teach, etc. But do you think it goes back a step, Katie, and this is something that law schools need to address in universities?
Yeah, I think it's even beyond what is taught in firms and what they're even now, I think, thinking to teach at universities. It'd be interesting to know how far that goes, because rather when we talk about skills and when we're talking about certain things that you can do, I think the most powerful thing that people can learn is how to really find out what's going on within themselves. So regardless of where that's being taught, whether it's school, university, or on the job, being able to uncover your personal blind spots and what's going on for you unconsciously, I think is really the key for understanding yourself and becoming more self-aware. And to me, that's way more powerful than anything I went to that was on communication skills without also looking at what's going on underneath, what's going on in your unconscious mind stopping you from being a good communicator. Because someone can tell you listen deeply, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't understand why you're not necessarily listening deeply in the first place. So a lot of the skills that are even sort of trying to be taught without that level of depth, I think it's kind of hard to see how people are really going to be able to latch onto those and really develop without finding out their hidden blind spots and barriers.
I think that's excellent. And I think, I want to get into this in a minute, and I'm going to come to Frida in a minute in terms of, obviously, you guys, as lawyers, coaching lawyers, you've identified a need and gaps. It's interesting. I wonder, I'd also be very interested in terms of, I know we don't have to get into the depths of some of your programs now.
We'll just wait for Rob to unfreeze.
You saw the four of us all looked at each other then as if to go, is it us or is it him?
No, everybody can.
It's a gremlin. But that's actually probably a good time to segue that. Thank you very much for the question that was asked to us as to the recording. And yes, we will be circulating the recording after today's session. But whilst we wait for Rob to unfreeze, I wonder if anybody I wonder if anybody wants to pose a question to us.
That's a good idea.
In the chat. Kirsten, go for it. I don't know how we empower you to speak. Who's the master?
You could just unmute yourself.
Does that work?
Go for it. You've got the speaking stick, Kirsten.
Thanks. If you hear squealing in the background, it's the 4 and 7-year-old negotiating about who gets the prime chair for the television watching.
Excellent debate to have.
So I was going to ask, I did an international business degree and law 15 years ago now. And what I'm hearing you say is they don't teach this in law, they don't teach that in law. So would you say that you need a marketer person with law skills, a waitress with law skills? Is there a particular field that you think that embodies what we really need? Or am I overreaching on what you're saying?
Who wants to take that one?
Well, I can start. I don't think. Well, I'm not saying that you need to go and take a degree in geography and bring those skills in to become a lawyer. What I'm saying is that, and what we're saying is that if you get to know yourself and you understand your strengths, your weaknesses, have the ability to be able to communicate to your team when you're not feeling comfortable in a certain situation or need some skill development in a certain situation, or want to gain greater understanding of the corporate values, whatever it is that you're particularly feeling like in an area that you're lacking, or want, for example, developing your communication skills, which is what everybody else has been talking about, or business development skills, which is another area where we don't really get training on. Yes, I think we should be building these into programs earlier on in our careers, but you can learn these skills at any stage in your career. It's just a case of having access to them. So learning how to build relationships in an authentic manner, learning to notice when your body is actually giving off different signals, understanding that feelings and emotions do have a place in the legal world and that we should be talking about them and acknowledging them and recognizing them, and then being able to switch those into a different state so that we can actually come across in the manner that we want to, rather than in a much more defensive manner, which is what we can quite often do when we're not really when we're not aware of how we are physically communicating. So that's what I think is the broader skill set that we need to be focusing on. I don't think we need to go into a different career beforehand to do that. I hope that answers.
I'd concur with that as well. I think it's often about being just generally a more rounded person. If I can compare it in a very inelegant way to parenthood, I'm sure some of the people on here today are parents, like I know a number of my colleagues today are, that we founded the business together. You start parenthood and you have most of the time literally no idea what you're doing, and you learn and fumble along the way, and you have lots of people giving you lots of advice. But that's where I think, if I can make the segue to the law, the lots of people giving you lots of advice is where you probably don't get when you come into law. So the partners will say to you, you need to bring in 5 times your salary before we're going to talk to you about partnership. So here you go off into the distance and make clients. And you think, oh shoot, how am I going to do that? And then it's those sort of soft skills that we talk about rapport building. And I know Katie is particularly in tune with emotional training, given her background, and understanding how and why people are reacting the way that they are when you do try to do the hard or the soft sell on them. So I concur with what Frida was definitely saying there. And to answer your question, no, you don't need to be, a waitress before you become a lawyer, but also there are skills that one can borrow from being a waitress, which are all about building rapport with people. And for some of us, particularly if we're introverted, that doesn't come naturally, but they can be skills that you can learn. Lara or Katie, did you want to expand upon that before we possibly go to the questions that are on the...
I do, Claire. I think I might almost have a response to this tricky question. And I think you can almost embody that wonder and curiosity of being a child, then I think that is going to hold you in great stead to embrace what's coming up.
Yeah.
If I can, sorry, I was going to say
no, you go.
The reason I mentioned the example of waitressing is that that's how I put my way, funded my way through law school. And I worked out at the Cleveland Sands. So for anyone in the Brisbane Bayside area, Cleveland Sands 15 years ago was quite notorious for having some bikie gangs. And it was my job to serve the beer and clear the cigarette trays. And that was such good training for poker face. Don't be scared. You've got a job to do. And just your interaction, and you're never looking, unsettled or frightened, and holding your line, and then also knowing when to bail and go get help. That was superb training. As a litigator, sometimes I'm like, right, waitress, poker face, but then also, hi, how can I help you? What would you like today? There are skills, I think, that are transferable across anything, and that was just the one that popped to mind.
It's interesting you talk about poker face, because my colleagues and I would all know about a thing called the Moravian rule of communication, and how when you are communicating with people, it's only, I think, 7% of the words, I have to look at my thing, 7% of the words, 38% of your voice, and 55% is your face. So the importance that your face and your words bring whenever you're communicating with somebody, that's not taught to you. But, body language is obviously so very, very important, which might be a good segue. And I'd like to throw this question to you, Lara, if I may, which was a question that was posed on the chatter. Lara mentioned, that's handy. Lara mentioned something earlier. How do you practically equip yourself with these skills? Equipping yourself with the knowledge by reading books and attending webinars is good and well, but that often leads to information parts in your psyche. Can we suggest some ways to effectively equip yourself with these skills? And Lara, I might ask you to address that, as well as the point, I guess, of lawyers teaching other lawyers these skills as well, which is what we advocate.
Yeah. So there's definitely, lots of webinars and books and things that you can read, but unless it gets into your muscle and it becomes part of your unconscious programming, then it won't be something that you will apply every day in a practical sense. Rob is actually back in the room. I'll let him in as I answer
Excellent.
this question. But you've done a great job, Claire. Amazing. Good job. But I'll just answer this. There's a really famous quote that Claire will tell you that I really stuffed up today when I tried to re-quote it. So I'll try again. A quote by Peter Sage that says that behavior is not dependent on skill set, it's dependent on mindset. So if you teach people new skills without raising their consciousness, then all you're doing is giving people more tools to enact the same behavior with. Woo, got it. Okay. So
Nice.
So basically, I learn a lot from that quote, and that is that if we don't change the mindset, if we don't change the foundation and the platform that allows these skills to be put into place, then it will just be something interesting that you read somewhere, or an interesting thing that you learned at a webinar. And so one of the things that we advocate for, one of the things that we advocate for, and something certainly that we put into our program, is the ongoing practical application of the things that we have learnt, so that it can become part of our muscle. So applying what you've learnt and putting it into practice, working out what works for you. What do you need to pay more attention to? So is building rapport, for example, is building rapport something that you consciously building it? Is that uncomfortable for you? What do you need to pay attention to make that something that you can do a little bit more of, a bit more comfortable with? So it takes that conscious effort to actually put it into practice, to try it, to see where the gaps are, and then see how you progress for you to actually learn something, anything really. But I love that question. Thank you for putting that forward. I hope that answers it for you. Hey, Rob.
Can I? Yeah, welcome back.
Welcome back.
It's so funny. The trials and tribulations of the modern professional in South Africa is that we have to deal with load shedding or power cuts, as I was explaining to Lara and Katie before the session, and my whole block just went down, so we had to wait for the generators to kick in. So yes, it's funny that I mentioned it and then it happened. So apologies for that, but I'm back now. I have obviously no idea what's been discussed over the last 5 minutes, but it sounded like
we were just about to segue into lawyers. Why lawyers coaching lawyers?
That was going to be my next question as well.
Excellent. Frida or Katie, do you want to take that one?
Go on, Katie. I've done lots.
Okay, right. So why lawyers coaching lawyers? Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily a tag you could apply to everything. You know, a lawyer who is acting more as a mentor than a coach may not be overly helpful depending on what you're looking for. I think having a lawyer coach you, you can get a better understanding. You can feel more understood by somebody that understands your world and your industry. But also, I think it's really important to make sure that whoever you're working with, you click with and have great chemistry with, and can really work with and trust, and somebody who has undergone, you know, sufficient training to really bring that to the fore. Rita, do you have anything to add to that?
I need to say that for me, I was so attached to my lawyer identity, and I suppose it's worth just giving you a little bit of background. So I was a complete workaholic when it came to law, when I was, whether I was in private practice or I was in-house, and it was amazing. Like, it was great. You know, I was really good at my job. It was, you know, everything was super focused on it, but everything else in my life was really falling apart around it. So when things, you know, became quite challenging at work, and they always do at certain point, the rest of my life was not in balance to be able to go and tackle it. And, you know, had I had coaching, and I trusted the person had understood my world and my industry and the pressures that were on it. The fact I did an international career, so I was wasn't in the same place for more than 3 weeks. You know, I was on a flight and hopping from Geneva to Singapore to middle of Africa, wherever it was. It, you know, it wasn't a sustainable lifestyle in many respects. But and this is where it stems back to Lara's immunity to change point, was that, you know, I really struggled that anyone would see through that identity, see through that, you know, she likes praise, she likes progress, she likes being successful. How could I possibly change so that I could have a personal life as well as a professional life and still be successful? And had I had a coach who was a lawyer who got that at the time, I would have gone and spoken to them a hell of a lot quicker than I did, rather than struggle on through, because we have all been in our, you know, in our troubled scenarios. We've all felt the pressures of what the legal world puts on us, and we've all had the courage to make that change and to try something different. And as a result, I can tell you now, I'm just coming back from holiday for my 40th birthday. I've had a week off. I have put my pen down. I've closed my laptop. The dogs have come with me, and it has been brain off. I'm allowed this break. I'm not taking calls 24/7. I'm not available 24/7. My clients respect that because I've spoken to them about it beforehand. There's a real different shift in that mindset that I'm now able to bring to business. Still be successful as a lawyer. I still practice, as Rob said at the beginning, and as a coach, but I've got really good boundaries and a really good balance between my personal and professional life. But that is from coaching and dragging myself out of the gutters at one point to get there.
If I could just add to that as well, Frida, my own example, which might assist some of the listeners, is that I obviously work in a different space, but related in terms of servicing the legal sector. But I have been running my own business and practice now for many years, over a decade, nearly 15 years. And I, for many, many years, have resisted any sort of coaching. I've resisted it. Maybe it's just pig-headedness, just believing that I knew better. Maybe it was I didn't want it to be a sign of weakness. Or that I didn't know, or that there was fear. There's possibly, I'm still exploring the reasons why. There might have been an element of fear, in the sense that I feared that if I didn't have the answers and I didn't have them immediately, then I wouldn't look great, and then my staff would lose faith, and then the clients would go somewhere else. And there's just a whole mismatch of things going on in your head that aren't right. And I recently started a coaching program for my business, for the recruitment business, with a firm based out of London, and incredibly supportive, as I'm sure Coaching Advocates is. You know, with a number of coaches, you know, you get to pick the coach that you get on best with. There's a whole series, a whole program, and I can tell the listeners now, and obviously, hopefully, this translates into your program, The Law, from the word go, from the minute one almost, definitely the first session. The people who are teaching me are all people who've been in my position. They're all recruiters. They're all in my industry, and they speak my language straight away. They knew the issues. They'd been through it before. They knew a pattern of behavior that had got me to that position. And I just think for you guys, in the sense that lawyers coaching lawyers, it's absolutely invaluable that you understand their industry. And I mean, obviously, I'm guessing you've found that with your clients that you've taken on so far. Anyone? Laura, sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. I definitely, I get this a lot, that the fact that I was a lawyer for a long time, there's that almost that immediate sense of rapport and connection that we have. There are some things that don't need to be explained to us. We understand certain terminology, for example. We understand, what it feels like to be burnt out. We understand what it feels like to, I certainly do anyway, what it feels like to have, had overwhelm and anxiety because of the volume of work, the demands of clients, the judges not being nice to you if you're in litigation or any of those things. We've been there. We know what it's like. We've been in the trenches, and there's an element of mentoring that goes with that as well, because we've been there. We know it's that coaching and a little bit of mentoring, which is really nice, which you don't always get with a coach who hasn't walked in your shoes before. And if I was to coach a doctor, for example, or a surgeon, or it'd be just coaching. I wouldn't be able to offer any kind of mentoring because I don't know what it's like to be a surgeon. I can imagine, but I don't really know. And so that's what I find is really nice with, about working with lawyers, is that it's people that I can connect with and they can connect with me. There's that credibility, there's that trust, there's that rapport, and it makes the rest of the communication and the conversation and the coaching so much easier. It just allows things to flow really, really nicely, and any sort of barriers or resistance to changing through the coaching process is dropped pretty quickly. And
I guess that translates into ROI, return on investment. Yeah. I guess it immediately translates, probably from session one, I guess.
Definitely.
They're already getting value for money just because that you've walked in their shoes, their trials and tribulations, and maybe where the gaps are in their skills and what they may have missed out on from their training and that kind of thing that we touched on earlier.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, I wish I had, leadership training, or I wish I had coaching as a young lawyer. And I think back now, and I think that really would have made all the difference for me, because they were the things that were missing. And having to have worked them out on my own, yeah, you can get there. It just takes so much longer, and it can, trial and error. Whereas if somebody's already done it, tried it, it's a lot easier to go to that person and ask for help. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Well, Claire, you're right. And Claire touched on it earlier, where she managed a global team of 50. And I was the same. I had 55 staff in 5 offices at one stage. But no one taught me how to do it. And as Claire said, no one taught her how, or showed her the way to do it. And you can get there, but, with the right training and mentoring, you can do it. I mean, in the 5 minutes that I was on hiatus for getting the generators up and running, have you touched on the Modern Lawyer program that you offer through Coaching Advocates yet? Or okay, there was a couple of stats that I read from some of the material that I was reading, where you put, and I love a stat, I love a percentage. I'm sure we all do, but it mentioned 56% of promoted in-house counsel reported having hired an executive coach at some point in their career, which I think is really, well, over 50% is huge. And is that something that some of you are finding, that some of your clients have hired other executive coaches in the past and it hasn't quite worked, or is this, in many cases, is the first time that people are venturing into that space? Claire, I don't know if you've got any experience on that.
I love that quote that you referred to then, because it only came out in 2020 from a study in New York by a firm called Barker Gilmore, who concentrated on US lawyers because there is a much larger uptake of coaching in the United States. But every coach predominantly practices or has a modality, if you can call it that, or has an area that they particularly concentrate in. And my speciality, for want of something different to describe it as, is those who are looking for either a movement up in their career or a movement sideways in their career or a movement out of law. And so I often refer to that quote. But I remember very, very early on in my career, I had a very lovely client come to me, and she had hired somebody not quite of the Tony Robbins standing in Australia, but still a very well-placed lady who was a professional coach, who charged her over $10,000. And correct me if I'm wrong, Frida, but I need to add another zero on the end of that to make it the equivalent of South African currency. And this young lady came to me and said, that was 3 sessions, and I didn't get anything out of it as to how to get to my next position in law, which was what I was wanting. So she did a 6-month program with me, which I designed for her. And now she's in a different role. She's in a general counsel role. She's managing a team, which was exactly what she wanted. So you need to pick carefully, obviously, the coach that you go to make sure that they provide the types of services that you're looking for. But if, for example, if you're looking to move up, out, or sideways, come and have a chat with me. And my 3 colleagues, they've also got different areas in particular. But what I touched on, I think you might, I can't recall if you were on the call at the time, Rob, or whether you were cranking up the generator, was the reference to coaching isn't just for remediation now, and it's for getting more skills and for moving up, whether moving up is in your career or whether it's changing something in your private life. So Frida gave a beautiful example of how she's now, given that one of her businesses is called Braving Boundaries, she's now found and created wonderful boundaries. And I'm finding a lot of younger lawyers in particular are coming to me these days, not only wanting to talk about career progression, but also wanting to talk about how they put boundaries in place, or if they have confidence issues, which always interests me greatly, that a large proportion of lawyers suffer from confidence issues and imposter syndrome. And you can't really just watch a lecture on that and then say, wow, I can now deal with my confidence issues and my imposter syndrome. You need to be able to talk to somebody who can help you think differently about that and put some practical tools in place and actually go and do some activities that might push you a little bit outside of your comfort zone. And often by engaging with a coach, you've got somebody who won't force you to be accountable to them, but you're paying them, so you very often will be accountable to them because you want somebody to help you in that respect. And as lawyers, we get that. But I'll stop talking because I can see my colleagues are nodding their heads. They might have something to contribute.
Yeah, you make some really incredible points there, Claire. And I think one of the things is, it's worth pointing out of that stat, that 56% as well, 83% of them also rated it as either valuable or extremely valuable. So it's incredibly high stats from that report. But you make some, from my experience of dealing with coaches in the past, again, much more valuable to have someone that knows your industry, much more valuable. But also, whilst, and I know with your, and we'll get onto it in a second, with your modern lawyer program, you have a structure to it, and there's areas that you do, you cover. But with coaching, I think it's important that not only do the person understand your issues and trials and tribulations, but also that they don't try to shove a program that isn't suited to you at you. And I know with coaching that's better because that's obviously much more individual and you can tackle the issues that you're facing. I think in particular, an example, I brought in a coach when I was was trying to buy the partners out of my business back in end of 2012, 2013. And this guy had experience of doing that with recruitment businesses. And he was now a life coach, so I thought he would be perfect. But he really just wanted me to focus on what he wanted to promote, which was, I can't even remember, but anyway, I took it off the top of my head. But it was an area of sort of mindfulness, and I could see where he was going. but I was in the middle of an acquisition, and as I'm sure everybody on this call has been involved in an acquisition at some point, and it can be very touchy, especially towards the end. And what I really wanted was some advice and some guidance on that side, but he really wanted to stick with his program, and it just didn't work. So, but obviously that's a bad, example of bad coaching. But with your Modern Lawyer program, there's areas that you focus on, such as mindset, effective communication, emotional intelligence, embracing change, building a business and relationships. Frida, in terms of just if I can come to you, in terms of the Modern Lawyer program and the development of it, I know that the four of you have been very key in developing that. Could you quickly touch on some of the challenges that you faced in forming that the program?
Apart from the tech skills, which I'll utterly crap at, the back end, like, oh my goodness, I think I've gone through a 6-month full-on learning course on that front. So there you go, adapting, being open to creating new skills. What has been really interesting is that we have had all 4 lawyers, all 4 coaches in different disciplines pulling those ideas together. So we've taken from, I'm trained in 15 different modalities under whole person coaching. I'm an Enneagram coach. We've got NLP. We've got ontological, not oncology coaching. And Claire's got this in background, and she's obviously got career coaching strengths as well. And we have basically piled everything that we've learned. We've pulled things, we've challenged each other's ideas and methodologies, and we've pulled it in to really allow the missing bits from what we were in law firms and law schools. So we're looking at creating self-awareness. We're looking at the importance of doing that, building your confidence. So then when you are required to go through that process of change, which is bloody scary, as we've just talked about previously, is that you have the confidence to do it. And then you can actually approach change in a much more functional and from a different mindset. And then we look at how that gets applied, which is the big thing. It's about implementing these skills that we're giving you, those practical skills we are giving you and training you in, and then helping you to actually implement those in your teams, with your clients, with your people at home, your family members, so that you can physically practice these to move you forward. And I'm super excited about the program, because this is just, it doesn't exist. And I just think these are skills that we need.
Excellent. And the course itself, I know, and one thing I wanted to point out to all the people on the call is that after this, I believe you're going to be getting an email with all of the details of the program that's on offer, and it's and the options available, where I believe it's you can either have it online, or you can have it online with the fortnightly one-to-one live group session with a coach, or there's another option for online plus private coaching, and then the whole lot online private coaching and live group sessions as well. So there are options and different price points on that, and I believe that the listeners are going to get an email with discount codes and special offers and that kind of thing after this, which is great. And in terms of that, I can't see at the moment from my screen, Laura. Is there any other questions that have come through at the moment from anyone?
No, not really any questions. No, there isn't.
Okay. And in terms of obviously, in terms of connecting with you guys, there's, as I mentioned, your website is coachingadvocates.com. That's a good place to start. I was looking at it yesterday, and I believe that you've got, if I'm right, you've got all of the coaches that are available as well. It's not just the 4 of you. There's other people, depending on where people are in the world, or depending on the profile that they like, they can select. Is that the case? You're all nodding, but I'm sure it's
correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
what would be? Go on.
I was just going to say, in terms of this program, this is a real, what's the expression? Something that we've loved putting together for people, and it's a real program that's kind of by lawyers for lawyers. Like Frida and Kate and everyone has said, it's our own stories and our own experience, as well as our coaching skills and our training that we've put together to kind of plug some of the holes that we wish we had, access to back when we were learning and growing. But having said that too, it's not just for people who are, still learning, like junior lawyers. It's for lawyers at any stage, really, because mindset isn't something that kind of gets developed as we get older. It doesn't necessarily update like our phones update, every however often. It takes sometimes some conscious effort to kind of think about the things that we've been doing unconsciously for so long. So if you've been a lawyer for a long time, you've been doing things for a long time, sometimes in order to learn something new and to grow, you've got to unlearn some things. You've got to unlearn some things that you've been doing unconsciously for a while, and then consciously learn some new skills and then put them into practice and take them forward. So this is a really exciting project for us, something that, we've been wanting to put into place for so many years. And I have to say, I'm really grateful, and I'll try not to get teary, but I'm really grateful to have worked with the 4 of you on this, or 3 of you on this. And Rob, thank you so much for bringing it to the attention of people, because this is a real, in my view, a real gem for the profession globally. So I'm really excited. Sorry. Okay.
That's great. No, brilliant. I think you can see the passion that you all have for it, and the fact that you are helping your colleagues and helping them on their journey. But I think that a very good point there, and one I can really relate to, is about the fact that it's not necessarily just for those entering the industry or who've been in it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's, as I mentioned earlier, with the coaching journey that I've just gone on, I've had I'm almost up to my 20th year in legal recruitment globally. And I've just got into this there's so much I haven't been taught. There's so much I haven't learned. So for your program, it will be very, very useful for the senior lawyer as well, senior counsel, anyone that, and partners, obviously. Without sounding cheesy, you can learn at any stage in your career and arm yourself for the rest. And go back to the beginning of this call where someone was discussing the point that I think it was Frida was saying at the beginning of the why. Why would you look at, why is there a need for this? This world is changing at a dramatic pace. Even without COVID, the role of the lawyer, the skills the lawyer must have, it's really, really changing at a dramatic pace. And I'm a big advocate of that, and certainly has been in the last 2 years, has been technology. You can go back to, was it Richard Susskind who wrote the book about the end of lawyers and talked about, I read that about 10 years ago, and from that point, which is a terrible title really, but you could see where in the book, you could see where he was going with the advent of technology. But now, as I was told the other day, and I have to get this right, that there is more trademarks and IP filings in the legal industry than in any other industry globally. There's more technology being built to try and speed up legal processes than any other industry at the moment. And that was told to me. So I'll have to look it up and see if I can find that stat for everyone. But if it is true, and I certainly, from what I'm sure that everybody on this call gets emails bombarded with, you must download this, you must buy this software. If it is true, then you're going to be needing to be improving your skills even more so with the advent of technology. But the program itself that you're offering is a 6-module course that runs for 12 weeks. Is that right? Or 24 weeks? Or is there 2 options? Frida, sorry.
It's a 12-week course. It's 6 modules, and there's a 6-month. You can take it and complete it over a 6-month period. So and nice and flexible, depending on what you like to how you like.
Sorry, Frida, there was a slight delay there, and we're in the same country. Sorry, that must be the generator slowing.
No, all of it. There's different options depending on how you like to learn. So, for example, you actually like having someone to physically talk to. There's options for that. If you like to work on your own, there's options for that. And if
not that this probably happens, but is there the chance that, let's say that I sign up and I start with Claire and I'm looking for her to coach me on career guidance, but then Claire and I have a massive fallout. Can we? It's not going to happen, I'm sure. But if I can you move coaches within the program? Sorry for picking on you, Claire. Sorry.
I've had worse said about me, so it doesn't matter at all. But when we have that falling out, Rob, to answer your question, yes, you can go and hire one of any of the 11 coaches, and our coaches cover. We've got people in the States, we've got people in Europe, we've got people in the United Kingdom, we've got people in Asia Pac region. I think we've almost covered the entire globe with our practitioners, and we also have obviously men and women, and we also have a really nice range of ages as well, and as we touched on earlier, disciplines. So if people don't know who they want, we could quite easily make recommendations. But sometimes you see somebody, you just click with them and you think, yeah, I'd really like to do some work with them. But if that doesn't work for you, we've got 11 others to select from. So we're very flexible in that respect.
And maybe some of your students, shall I say, will maybe eventually become coaches themselves and may end up being part of the program. You never know.
Well, one of the things is teaching managers and leaders how to coach their teams going forward as well, because that's an invaluable skill for a leader to have.
Okay, so in terms of if people want to get in touch and they're not 100% sure yet, we would advise them to go on your website, coachingadvocates.com, but they can reach out to each of you, I assume, just send an email, or they can chat to you just to flesh it out a little bit more if they're not sure, and get a real picture of what it is. Obviously, as I mentioned already, that they'll be emailed, anyone on this call will be emailed with details about the costs, the program details, discount codes, that kind of thing. And in terms of connecting with you all, would it be best to go through coachingadvocates.com, or I know that all of you are on LinkedIn as well, and I know Frida's certainly Braving Boundaries is on Instagram as well. So there's a number of socials that you're on. Is there any that you would like anyone in particular to connect with you on?
We're everywhere, Rob.
Probably, yeah. The easiest was probably email though. So it's info at coachingadvocates.com, and we can pop that into the chat. But I think we'll send an email out, and if you want to have a chat with us, then we are very open to doing so. And
this is also open to anyone in the legal profession, right?
Absolutely.
So, advocate, barristers, clerks, anybody that touches on the legal profession and is facing challenges. But I think, yes, we're getting to the stage where you've obviously identified a huge need, and not only and it's not a local need either; it's a global need, which is wonderful. Okay, unless there's anything else to add or any questions coming from, I can't see the chat at the moment, but I don't think there's any questions.
No, there's no questions.
Anything.
No.
People may prefer to obviously ask you questions in private and email you directly, which will be great. Then the only thing is for me to thank everybody for attending, and anybody that's listening to this afterwards. I got one request from someone in New York last night to send through, a colleague of Frida's, Subrata, who's getting a mention there, has asked for it to be sent through to her, who's a lawyer that is also, in New York, and I think it was 2:30 in the morning we started for them. So I told her to not stay up for it. So we'd send it afterwards. But yes, anybody that's listening in afterwards, please visit coachingadvocates.com or email info@coachingadvocates.com. And thank you to each of you, Lara, Frida, Katie, Claire. Thank you so much for your time. This has been fascinating introduction. There are people out there, you guys, to help and assist people in their journey, in their careers. So thank you very much. And yes, have a great day.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day for us in South Africa.
Yes,
have a good day.
Have a good day.
1 o'clock in Sydney.
Indeed. It's not even 10 o'clock here.